I just want to say, being undetectable is exactly as fun as you think it is. No, I didn't do anything pervy, not really equipped for that. On that note, got to find out I don't have a digestive system either. All that flesh felt a lot worse coming up, rotten and slimier than it did going down. And I've managed to avoid doing anything evil with it, but come on, it's a fun toy to play with no matter what. I'm upbeat because I'm nervous. Currently, we are hours away from go time, and overprepared is not how I'd describe my merry group. I'm going to tell you how we got here, but first, as always, let's see what folks have been saying. You guys have kept me alive this long, I can't turn my back on you now. To the guy who was smart enough to check his house for me, good on you, buddy. This paranormal shit tends to like coincidence and connection. And hell yes, chuck me into a furnace if you find me. This isn't some release me from my torment kind of thing either. I don't necessarily mind this. Even the parts where I'm making you folks question your support. Sad to say, but I'm not made to love. No, I've just grown to like you folks. And at the end of the day, I'm a homemade weapon that isn't going to get any safer as time goes on. Getting Kaz and Leo together? Oh, I'm on that. And there are other folks like me out there? I mean, I've met entities, obviously, but I'm assuming not everyone has its own scary story. I wonder what the common threads are. As I just said, this paranormal shit loves its connections and serendipity. Now, I took a lot of advice, and while honestly, I get the feeling having Kaz and Leo in the same room is a horrible idea, you guys seem to live and breathe this stuff almost as much as I do, so I trust you. I figured between the three of us, we had enough amped up senses to hear the coffin crew coming. That sounds like a professional vaping team, I know, but I'm an evil doll, not a marketing executive. So I broached the topic of a meeting of the minds. He sat there on the old leather couch in the living room, shaking his head before responding.
First of all, would have been smart to tell me that before I got rid of those bodies. Second, that is a horrible idea. You might be friends with that thing, but he skips lunch and suddenly I'm getting a look at my guts.
Leo says. I notice he's sporting a new leg. It's quite a bit more low-tech than the first. It's clearly a leg from one of the robbers, a little too long and haphazardly reinforced with a few screws and wires. But somehow, it seems to function a bit. He catches me staring.
Necromancy is a neutral art. For example, if your friend has a white or something, it'd be a 50-50 chance he's an asshole or psychopath. And besides, I know like 2 necromantic projects.
He says a little defensively.
A Candyman though? No. Not something that is physically capable of playing well with humans.
He finishes. Now there was actually a long, involved conversation, via my phone on my end, in regards to relative morality, tactical risk, a balanced team, and a bunch of other dry, important topics. But for the sake of a little humor, before things get morbid, pretend it was a star wipe into Kaz and Leo arguing.
You want to bring another malignant into the situation? Really? Ha 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 ha!
Leo yells, sarcastically chuckling.
Yes, actually, he owes me a favor and could level a city block if he really wanted to.
Kaz retorts.
That makes me feel the opposite of better. My issue isn't with lack of punch. It's with something that can level a city block, inserting itself into an already high-stakes situation.
Leo says, slowly trying to remain calm.
Oh, and your alt-right, tinfoil hat-wearing, lizard-person-fearing gun nut is a better option?
Kaz spits.
You don't know anything about him, Sugar Nuts. He is a graysmith. He's not some militia asshole. He makes the shit that lets people like me survive things like you.
Leo says in a condescending fashion.
I know his type. Got sick of supplying regular people with regular ways to kill each other. Needed more of a thrill, so he started using powers beyond his grasp to make worse things to sell to more unstable people. Let me guess, Alex Jones fan. 10 guns in every room, gets paid in Bitcoin, isn't racist. Am I close? I bet I'm close. And that Graysmith name? Half of them aren't even Graysmiths. and half of those who are just genocidal twats.
Kaz's massive mouth extends into a shoulder-to-shoulder smirk. Leo takes a step forward. I stomp my feet on the ground to get their attention, hoping to stop the situation going tribal.
Maybe we don't even need backup. The chest could change things.
I add, trying to defuse the situation.
For the love of... Have you not seen the pattern? Whoever made you skip class half the time by the looks of it, that trunk, it's going to have some spooky semi-functional garbage that is going to make you look real edgy but not do jack shit.
Leo waves his hand dismissively as he says this.
Yes, all problems just need a bigger gun with more blades welded to it, right?
Kaz goes to say more and I stop him with a kick to the shin. He looks at me, face full of rage.
The adults are talking. Just stay out of it, you goddamn pipe bomb.
Kaz screams, and suddenly both him and Leo go silent. Leo breaks the silence first, giggling, then laughing, then full-on collapsing on the couch with fits of giggles. All the time, Kaz is suddenly apologizing profusely.
Look at Mr. Monster Pride. Mr. We have just a valid society, dropping P-bombs like they are going out of style.
Leo cannot continue as he starts laughing again.
I'm sorry. I'm old, I'm frustrated, and I'm in over my head, just as much as anyone else here. That's not who I am. We aren't in the 1800s anymore. I know. I'm sorry.
Kaz won't meet my eyes. I'm not offended, but at least this seems to be calming things down.
Oh my god. I can't stop laughing. Maybe you have a little human in you after all. Dice Clay here, not giving a shit what people think. How about we try the trunk? At least that will take an option off the table.
Leo says, wiping tears from his eyes. Leo and Kaz brought the trunk down to the basement, and despite the fact that it fit into the microwave thing, turning it on did nothing more than give us all sudden suicidal thoughts. Kaz acquiesced and let Leo call his friend JP. When this gentleman showed up, I thought maybe Kaz had precognition in his bag of tricks. He was in his mid-40s, wearing brown cargo pants and a Deus Vault sleeveless shirt. He was bald, likely not by choice, with a muffin top and a pair of Doc Marten boots. I didn't see a tinfoil hat, but the giant joint in his ear was a good substitute, and his thick leather bracelet screamed of compensation.
Holy fuck. Never thought I'd see one of you up close.
JP says, poking Kaz.
Could we move this along, sir?
Kaz says, holding back rage. JP puts down a large black suitcase, opens it, and lights the joint. After this, he takes an odd obsidian tool, reminiscent of an awl, in his free hands and starts prodding the lock.
Put that out. If this place smells like a stoner's armpit, it's going to give us away, JP, and you've already made it smell like an armpit.
Leo chides his friend.
Half of this is an anti-void herbal mixture, which costs 10 times what we did. Personally, I'd rather make sure we aren't being watched, but that's just crazy old JP, who everyone seems to need.
JP blows the smoke directly at Leo. After a few hours and a lot of borderline not okay conversations about minorities, he manages to pop the trunk. There were 2 black leather bags in the box. The first we open is exactly what Leo thought. A couple heavier blades, a steel top hat with a sharpened rim, and a bunch of other flea market crap. The second had a small sheet of paper taped to it. The beautiful cursive writing reads as follows.
M-fused alchemical homunculus proxy. Prototype 2. Dear Milford, this isn't to be used unless the mission is in severe danger. It's untested, but should be more than enough to cut down a few armed humans between you and the kid. Love, Angela.
The thing inside made me look downright comforting. It was 4 feet of black and white mange-ridden fur. I recognized it immediately as a Sammy the Skunk brand doll. It was popular in the 90s. Its shtick was it used pre-recorded tapes to mimic talking, but this one was not factory standard. All its joints were reinforced with overlapping bone. It had long pointed teeth, obviously ripped from some predator, and behind the tail, where the tape deck should be, were racks of multicolored fluids. The tail itself was studded with blades that were rivaled only by the conical claws of its hands and feet. Instinctively, I found the deep red on button, and as I pressed it, I felt my mind thin and stretch, some vital part of me siphoned off. It was disorienting for a minute, but I quickly adapted and found myself in control of the contraption. Most of its functions were done automatically. All I had to do was will it to be done, one way or the other. I wasn't a fighter ace, but after a couple hours, I was confident I could point it in a direction and scream kill with a degree of efficiency. We had a sparring match. JP's payment for opening the trunk was to watch, between me controlling the skunk and Kaz. I didn't win, but it was a hard-fought tie, much more than I'd be capable of unaided. We brought the contents of the trunk up to the attic, and as I shut down the skunk, my mind started to go back to full speed. Kaz gave me his number for when it was go time and promised to have his backup on speed dial. Additionally, he promised Leo something to remedy his leg situation when he came by. Does anyone else feel things have been going uncharacteristically good for me so far? Don't worry, it changes. Leo and I repair the house to what we hope is an identical state. I spent my free time practicing with the proxy and trying out the little baubles that came with it. But the one-eyed Wonder Weasel and his 3 balls came back in the wee hours one morning, and they brought company. About 24 20-somethings all wearing identical sweatpants and yellow shirts. They are hurt and arrive in 4 hearses driven by the Lovecraft lads. I liked that one. How about you guys? All of them bleeding and missing pieces, shuffle in a single file into the basement. For a minute, I wonder how the bishop has the balls to do this in the open. Then I see a faint shimmering around the group. Context dictates to me that no one is supposed to see these guys going in. I flick on my own invisibility and trust in it to let me follow directly behind them. I get a feeling that something very bad is going down and want to be able to get Kaz involved as quickly as possible. The bishop and the malignant herd them into a room that has no business being as large as it is. From the ceiling are enough thin wires to wrap around the midsection of each human. They feed through rusted pulleys and hooks to a handle made of several fused bones. The evil pricks tie them around the stomach, one by one, chittering, laughing, and taking the odd piece of flesh, terrifying the poor victims beyond reason. Some beg, some plead, some offer to serve. None are listened to. Lastly, they drag Leo into the center of the room, directly in front of the bishop.
Didn't even have the guts to kill yourself, eh? Well, you get to see, once again, how you thinking you are the man with the big balls gets people killed.
The bishop says. He starts to chant. A breeze from nowhere starts to stir the room as the bishop begins to pull on the handle. The victims raise, cuts digging inch by inch into them. He starts to get louder, punctuating his incantation by roughly jerking the handle, adding a burst of volume and raining gore that sends an arctic blast through the room. As the victims reach the ceiling, hoarfrost begins to cover every surface in the room. With a final massive tug, he bisects the victims in unison. More gore than is possible rains down. Minutes of blood and bone storming in the room before leaving an eerie silence, broken only by erratic drops. In the room stands 20 impish creatures. 3 feet of boils, pus, and more clawed appendages than any creature strictly needs. Their charcoal gray skin undulates with ropey muscle, and their stench is sulfur and iron.
2 more things, choir boy.
The bishop says.
The first is that was the last thing you'll ever see.
Abruptly, he rips the remaining eye from Leo's head and starts examining it. He squeezes it a bit, and suddenly, a white-hot flare of fire and arcing static shoots from the eye.
That would have been helpful, wouldn't it? For the record, shot to the head with that, you'd be walking out. The second thing, though.
The bishop lowers his voice, putting his face next to Leo's ear.
You never bothered to check for security cameras. You oblivious fucking child. I've been watching.
I run, getting to the attic and dialing Kaz as soon as possible. And that is where I am. I guess if this goes as bad as it's looking, this will be the last you hear from me. But by all means, I'm in need of any advice you have left to give. And I'll be checking the comments until I have to man up. If this is goodbye though, watch out for the shit that goes bump in the night. It's smarter than you can imagine, and scarier than you've read. As I was texting Kaz, I slowed for a moment. I noticed no pursuers, for the moment anyway. But I did hear the voice of the bishop loud and clear. Guess my maker wasn't the only one who got sloppy with enchantments.
You poor, sick, sad boy. Talking to yourself. Making friends with a new level. For shame.
The bishop taunts.
What's that look on your face? Actually, I guess it can't be called a look anymore, now can it? You thought your little friend was real? No, that creature in the suit is. But you've been losing it, my friend. You are one sick little child.
I hear Leo scream as the bishop finishes. It hits me.
You fucking genius,
I say, heedless of the nonsense I actually verbalized. My creator may not have given me every gift in the book, but she given me at least one I've never even thought about, despite how obvious it is. If anyone is still confused, let me explain. Remember way back, what seems like a decade ago, when I was talking about the void webs that kept me from being seen or heard? Obviously, they were a splash-dash jury-rigged solution, but they were effective. The thing was, at the time, I was thinking of things from a 1993 standpoint. A standpoint where a security camera cost $5,000 and took a month to install. But we are here in 2020. They cost a dime and are on every single lamppost, doorframe, dashboard, and other surface now. I wasn't made in 1993, or else I'd be 17 years late and burned out. My creator made sure cameras were not an issue for me. I mentally take back all the shit I've been talking about her and send Kaz a new text.
they know about you, not me. Do not come here walking into a trap. Where do we meet?
Kaz sends me directions to a shady area of town with exactly one business of note, an import candy shop. I think of taking the skunk, but it does not appear to be made for stealth. I make my way without a trace out of the house, hoping that Kaz can help me figure something out before the bishop gets bored and kills Leo. The shop stands out like a sore thumb among the other boarded up, burnt out, graffiti-covered buildings in the plaza. Not a mark on it besides the closed for family emergency sign in old-time cursive on the door. Kaz lets me in and I almost bolt out the door. The smell hits me first. A mushrooms and iron slap in the face that makes me wish I was made for hauling bricks instead of hunting folks. Then I see the dim bare bulbs, the bodies. Probably a dozen, all in various states of decay, all with pieces torn off of them, blood and organs spilling onto the thick plastic tarps they were sitting on.
Holy shit, Kaz. Think of cleaning up before guests come over?
I say, having little right to judge.
First, I wasn't expecting guests, ever. Second, get up off the fainting couch. I kill someone and leave them where they fall. I've got to kill more people, don't I? This is a conservation effort.
Kaz says, not defensively, but actually hurt. I update him more in depth on the situation, and he shakes his head with a morbid chuckle.
I hate to say it, but I have even more bad news, my friend. He knows that big malignant. He's not joining them, but he isn't joining us either.
Kaz says with a sigh.
Can I tell you a story?
He continues cryptically. I nod and let him tell his story.
You know what it's like believing in the paranormal, to the paranormal, believing in the canon, Kind of like a religion meets an urban legend. Not many folks still believe anymore, but I still do. I'm too old to change and too smart to want to. The canon says a lot of things, but two really stick out to me right now. The first are the trends. You see, humans, even those that have had a brush with our kind, never really get it right. If they did, I'd be stealing kids or have springs in my feet, and you'd be a doll with some serial killer's soul in it. Real life is messier, more complicated, but if you look really closely at their art, their legends, some say you can see the trends. What I see in the trends is bigger, more earth-shattering across all the board. 30 years ago, the stories were about tiny organizations finding one or two of us every so often. Now, it's world-destroying salt shakers and unkillable beasts at every turn. It means something, and I really don't like the implications. The second thing are the threads. People, things, events that are connected on some deeper level. Honestly, I never really held much onto this idea, but I can't quite shake the feeling we in some way got ourselves into this. You and I, we both don't want to be what we are, at least not the parts that involve destroying people for no reason. You, it's obvious, you are fighting that shit at every turn. Me though, I'll never be able to avoid killing folks, and I'll never be able to have the self-control to wait for a month to find a serial killing pedophile that really deserves it. But that's not the worst of what my kind do. We bait people into ruining their lives, the lives of their friends and family. Also, they keep our pantry full, so we can eat during the year. Not that we have to, but few actually have the fortitude to deal with the pains that come with starvation. That's my sacrifice for humanity. I sell to entities, but no humans. This keeps my wallet full, but my stomach woefully empty. And the hero? He is of a non-standard mindset, just based on the fact that he didn't try to kill us both in sight. We are part of one thread. It can fray, but I believe if it breaks, that bishop asshole is going to cause toxic havoc. We can't fight him and save Leo, but I think I have a way to get the bishop here.
Kaz says as he begins typing on his phone. Quite a delicate feat with his Ginsu-esque claws. A few minutes after he sends the text, I hear a chittering noise that seems to come from every direction. A moist scrabbling, clicking that seems to drown out all other sound. The insects flood in from the vents, cracks in the wall, under door frames, everywhere. They amass themselves into a pile, and seemingly dragged up from its depths is Hive.
What is so important that you woke me up in the middle of the night?
He says.
There is a change to the deal.
Kaz says cryptically.
What deal?
I say concerned.
Don't worry about that.
Is all the explanation Kaz gives me.
We need to use you to get the bishop here.
Kaz says, turning to Hive.
Oh, that's all, is it?
The Malignant says sarcastically.
You will be totally safe. I just need something they want, and you are the only thing I can get a hold of. All I need you to do is be convincing when I call. Then you scuttle off to wherever you want till it's time to pay our end.
Kaz says this in a matter-of-fact fashion, but Hive stays silent for a moment.
You need to stop getting yourself in trouble, Kaz. I've known you for a very long time, and every few decades you find a puppy to adopt. But I'll help. Same deal as before, though. We are friends. But don't think of crossing me.
As Hive speaks, a dark gloom briefly blows through the room.
You will get what's yours.
Kaz says, bringing out a cell phone.
You have the bishop's number.
I say cautiously. Something about the tone of the conversation is making me a little paranoid.
No, I was hoping Hive would be able to help.
Kaz says, looking towards the other doll.
Of course. Why don't I just go fight him myself while I'm at it?
Hive says, shaking his head as he pulls a small, special frog-like creature from within himself. Hive makes a short chant in a language I've never heard, ending it with twisting the frog-like creature, pouring its blood and viscera on the floor. After a few moments, it begins to run and coagulate into a series of numbers. Kaz dials.
Listen, I'm done. I have better things to do with my time than get in the middle of this pissing contest. If you want to come down here, I've got a peace offering for you.
Before Kaz turns the phone towards him, Hive wraps himself up in his own limbs, rips and tears forming on his rubber skin. He starts to shriek and plead in a long dead language.
My life for his. You know the favors you could gain with him as a bargaining chip? Me? I don't even have a stock for you to take. It's the smart move.
There's a long pause before Kaz nods and says,
Okay, be here in an hour.
Hive dissipates into a cloud of flies and mosquitoes the second the call is over.
It's go time, kid. Can you access that skunk from here?
Kaz says hopefully. I try, and for a moment I feel just out of reach. But after a second or two of concentration, I can feel that connection. And that little bit of my energy travels across town, sparking life into what is our last option. At this distance, more of it is being controlled by the strange pseudo-intellect than myself. It's less like I'm controlling an RC car, more like giving orders. It doesn't feel like true sentience, just enough instinct to complete a task and send back information.
I think I'm good.
I say nervously.
Okay, where you hid that pistol, I put a little surprise for Leo. Getting him to that is your only chance of getting him out of there.
Kaz says grimly. I sit on the floor and concentrate on the feedback and sensations from the proxy. My mind is filled with rage and hatred that makes my joy at killing look like mild curiosity. I'm constantly fighting down red, vicious thoughts of wholesale slaughter as I try to figure out the sensory input. Its senses are much more dull than mine, and its body, while much heavier than my own, lacks the spider's grace that I begin to rely on. Both of these things combine as I sneak the proxy out of the attic.
You stay here with the Suitenkinder. I'll take the twins to go make that deal with that stretched out idiot.
He says, I'm guessing to the large malignant. I look out a doorway and watch the three of them leave, both myself and the proxy getting a nauseating burst of adrenaline when we realize this is the point of no return. I make a mental note that there are 20 of the smaller creatures, and at the same moment, a flickering digital counter appears in the proxy's vision. Slowly, with plodding steps that sound like dropped bricks, I walk the proxy in front of the door to the basement. I let loose a warbling electronic roar made from the recorded screams of executed murderers and wait. Mechanical form clattering and heaving as I prepare for the first unfortunate entities to open the door. A little voice in the back of my mind tells me that if the giant bastard is the first one up, I'm likely screwed. But that's another problem for another time. The door flies off its hinges, a corner gouging the bone shoulder plates of the proxy. I stand my ground, meeting the gaze of 4 creatures that cling to the doorframe. To describe them as a group would be useless. They were all small, dark, and wicked, but their forms ran the gamut, from multi-limbered and arachnid to like black tube of flesh and teeth. They had the numbers, but I was the bigger, harder phallus in this pissing contest. There is no banter, no threats, just a dark wall of claws and teeth leaping at me from the doorway. The first creature, I grab by its ovid face and close the vice grip on the proxy's claws. Its body goes limp and begins to liquefy as a second, looking like a cross between a snake and a crab, lunges at me. It ensnares my body, but with a flick of my blade-strewn tail, the thing bursts apart in time to soak the last 2 in gore. They die via the massive carbide teeth the proxy has, in 2 bites that are quick enough to land before the unholy forms of the creatures hit the ground. 16, the counter reads. I look into the basement and see more of the things starting to come down the hallway. I leap the stairs and land in front of them, gears and servos straining and protesting. This thing really isn't made for acrobatics. 3 attack in unison, and I'm taken off guard. The combination of claws, barbs, teeth, and sap-like bludgeoning limbs come from every direction. Fur flies from the proxy. I lose the bone plates protecting one knee, and a blow so fast it cracks like a whip sends me face first into the wall. I hear a click and can feel, even through the distance, a cold chill goes through my flesh and soul. A second later, there is boiling rage as one of the cylinders in the proxy engages. Flesh salvaged from malignant and other rarer things inside the proxy swells and starts to excrete a thick yellow slime, leaving the proxy slightly taller with bulging biological masses. I charge headfirst into the crowd, biting, clawing, and tearing, letting the proxy take over. The blows are much harder now. Missed claws hit the walls with the force of a gunshot, sending chunks of masonry flying, creating a deadly whirlwind of shrapnel around the deadly creation. Eventually, after what feels like hours of rending and tearing, the cylinder's effects wane. The proxy is done, what deflated, sagging, covered in gore and thick yellow slime. The counter reads 10, and they are hanging from the walls and ceiling staring at me. Leo is strapped in his chair, and the giant malignant is doing nothing other than looking directly at him. My synthetic rage costs me. The damaged leg is beginning to catch and spark. One eye is flickering, and one set of claws is stuck out, having been severely bent.
Get me the fuck out of this chair.
Leo tries to say calmly but quickly.
But be quick. It's only going to move once you try to get me out.
Despite their casualties, the tiny creatures seem to be enjoying themselves, chittering back and forth and petulantly throwing various objects at me. I move the proxy to its absolute limit of speed, biting the handcuffs holding Leo to the chair. They shear easily enough, but I feel constricted as a larger creature, easily the size of myself, wraps its thick, almost manta ray-like body around me. I stop, tensing the real and synthetic muscles inside the proxy, getting ready to burst this thing. Too late, I realize it was a trick. The smaller creature explodes, having sacrificed itself to distract me long enough for the giant malignant to land a solid kick that blows out the internal components, shatters most of the cylinders, and sends me smashing into the wall. The counter reads 9, but there is so much static I can barely make out the scene around me. The proxy refocused and I see Leo, missing 2 eyes, 1 leg, and a lot of blood, leap from the chair and begin to grapple with the giant malignant. Sensing a shift in momentum, the remaining smaller creatures swarm me en masse. At this point, the proxy deploys 2 of the remaining 4 cylinders. The proxy begins to expel a thick yellow cloud that rapidly begins to fill the room. It hangs thick and heavy, not rising above 4 feet from the ground. Leo and the malignant start to cough. The smaller creatures, getting lungfuls of this shit, begin to bleed pink, thin blood from any orifices they may have. The proxy is failing, but my fight isn't some karate movie. It's a war of attrition. I grab, I throw, I shoulder charge, never exposing myself with a killing blow, just letting the gas do its work. Within minutes, the last of the creatures die, coughing up and defecating what passes for organs in its form. The massive malignant trips, landing face first into the microwave. There's a burst of energy, and it's thrown to the ground, alive but dazed.
Upstairs, now,
Leo says, uselessly scanning the room with his bleeding sockets. I run to him, wedging my form under the stump of his leg and guiding him up the stairs. We hear the malignant begin to rise and Leo yells, "Bathroom!" as if I'm not literally occupying the same space he is. We make it to the bathroom. Leo feels around for the toilet. He flips the lid, revealing a pistol and, just like Kaz said, a large piece of candy. When Leo feels this, he says,
"You wonderful bastard,"
unwrapping and eating the sweet. The effect is less dramatic than I hoped. Instead of being brand new and fresh to fight, the one eye simply forms back in its socket and the worst of his wounds seals shut. Leo seems unfazed and punches a hole into the plaster wall, ripping out a similar necromantic prosthetic to his previous creation.
"Always keep a spare,"
he says, slotting the leg into place.
"We got one chance."
Leo says as he removes the clip from his gun and begins to recite a beautiful prayer, or maybe a poem in a language I've never heard. He removes the bullets and places a drop of blood on them. As he does so, each seems to take on a dull shine. He loads the bullets back into the clip and slams it home.
"Pray to what you pray to, Punch. We come out of this bathroom heroes or bloodstains."
Leo says, I assume that it is likely to be the second option, as he couldn't kill the creature fresh as a daisy with a supernatural gun, let alone half dead with a pea shooter. The malignant tears off the door like he's opening a soup can. Leo fires, and any thoughts I had about the gun not being effective are as evaporated as the large pieces of the malignant the bullets are taking. The barrel heats past red hot as Leo keeps firing, the malignant chest a ruined mess. The last bullet exploding the front of the gun and sending the giant creature through a wall.
"That's not going to keep it down forever,"
Leo says, running out of the bathroom.
Doesn't have to. Kaz has a plan.
I say as we run out of the house. Leo picks up the nearly destroyed proxy, and I let my mind drift back to my form. Glass and wood shatters as I come to in the store. I'm undetectable, but Kaz is in a brutal battle with the bishop and the twins. Large pieces of Kaz's body are missing, flayed as if with a whip. One of the twins is missing an arm, the other is moving slowly, but the bishop seems unscathed. The twins stay close, swinging at him with brutal pointed hammers in each hand. They work nearly perfectly in tandem, driving Kaz back as the bishop lashes him with those seemingly endless tentacles. Time to take some wind out of his sails. I may not be made for a straight-up fight, but that's not the situation I find myself in. I move like a ghost behind the bishop, sending a blade straight up his groin. It sinks in up to my wrist, and I retract as the old crone screams in pain, kicking out and slashing with a thin barbed tentacle. But I'm far enough away it misses, and it gives Kaz the breathing room he needs to land a massive overhead blow on one of the twins. The fleshless thing hits the ground and is obliterated by a stomp that costs Kaz a nasty hammer blow to the head. I dash in at the bishop again, burying a blade in his knee. He was more prepared though, and a whip-like appendage connects, sending me into a wall and reminding me of exactly how much things can hurt in my real body. Kaz has given up any form of defense at this point and is just trading blurred powerful blows with the remaining twin. He comes out the victor, but one arm is useless and his face is a mangled mess. He walks towards the bishop, who is hurt but much fresher than either of us. I try for another run, but something inside of me isn't right. I can't move well enough. I'm feeling weak. At that moment, the door of the store bursts inward. Leo tosses the proxy at the bishop, and I'm quick enough to send a bit of myself into it. I manage to gouge and slash and pound the bishop bloody before he grabs the proxy by each limb and tears it apart. He's worse off, but not nearly out of the fight. He walks towards Leo.
Just you and me, again, old man. I've always wanted to say this, but you should have killed me when you had the chance.
Leo goes to rush in, but is sent flying forward. How the giant malignant snuck up so quietly, nor why it didn't have a scratch on it, is a mystery I don't think I'll ever solve.
Stop!
I yelled.
Spare me. The hunter gave me a weapon, but I'm done. It's yours if you let me go.
For a moment, I think the giant isn't smart enough to grasp what I'm saying, but it looks to the bishop, who nods. The creature holds out one massive hand. I reach inside of me and pull out the keychain, placing it in the creature's palm. In an instant, it begins to thrash and bulge, its form cracking and bursting. The bishop senses something is up, and with a growl he leaves, but not before slashing a massive chunk out of Leo's stomach, as he was distracted by the monster. Leo falls to the ground, and I notice Kaz slumped against one wall with the malignant in the room becoming larger, darker, more armored and imposing. I run to Kaz, who is holding out another candy with his one good arm.
Your choice, kid. You're going to need one of us to take care of Badar. I'd like it to be me, but I'm a little biased. I had to make the deal to give you the choice.
He coughs up a thick liquid that I assume should not be coming from his mouth. With an almost sexual moan, the malignant finishes its transformation. It's now tall enough that it has to hunch over in the room, and wide enough I cannot see across the store. Its face shows more intellect, cunning, and rage than I have seen, and it focuses that on me.
Next time we meet, I will treat you like any other insect standing in my way. But now, I am joyful. It has been too long since I've had my true form on the mortal plane. Do you feel this deal is fair?
Badar says, ready to crush me should I say no.
Very much so.
I say, feeling weaker by the second. Badar doesn't even try to get out the door without tearing it from its hinges. Bricks topple and glass shatter as he makes his way out of the shop. I walk to Leo and find that, no matter what, all I can manage is a slow plod. I hope to see that his wound isn't as bad as I thought, but as I stand beside the hero, it's actually worse. I can see a loop of intestine hanging lazily from the man. I try to talk to him, but he is too far gone with shock and pain to answer me. So that is where we are left. Maybe for the last time, something inside me is giving way. Both my friends are dying, and I can only, maybe, save one. The evil prick was whipped, escaped, and while I have no ideas as to its motivations, I have a feeling that we may have released something just as bad into the world, trying to kill the bishop. I need help. Who do I save? What do I do? This might be the end, and if so, I tried, guys. I really did. With warmest regards, IED.
One of you once asked how things would be if I were watching this entire exchange. Well, rejoice. I've been watching every last word. It's been interesting seeing your theories and opinions on my work. But you and the little pipe bomb himself are quite off the mark. I'm no mere alchemist or summoner. I am a scientist who isn't afraid to delve into realms science fears to go. Am I petty? No. I simply have no time for those stupid enough to annoy me. But laugh if you will, I'm on the verge of breakthroughs that will be the envy of researchers and warlocks, and I can guarantee you will get to see them firsthand. Keep thinking I'm some basement tinkerer. It will make my quest so much easier.
Whew, what a freaking cliffhanger. Kidding, but seriously, I need to know what he decides. What goes down with Batter? The bishop just gets away? Where's the mad scientist? Okay, let me stop. I have so many more questions. Thank you so much, HughEhhoule. HughEhhoule. Huge a-hole. Haha. Thanks, dude, for letting me do this story. Anyway, thank you so much, Lady Nopingham, Dom, Swamp, Somber, T, Tatorian, and Jerad for joining me. It was an absolute blast putting this together. Be sure to check the description for all links and socials for everyone involved. Show them your love. Last thing, I have posted a poll on my community page. Let me know if you want to see this as a full series premiere or not. Be sure to vote. We'll give it until next Monday. And with that, remember, just because you didn't see it doesn't mean it wasn't watching you.